What's up, guys? Another season of Saints football is upon us yet again. So today we're going to be discussing the overall state of the New Orleans Saints heading into the 2024 NFL season, kind of doing an off-season recap, talking about where we got better, what we had losses in, and then kind of recapping the draft and overall state of the Saints, the division, all that stuff, since we didn't really do any content in the off-season because, after the roller coaster ride the last season was, I needed to take a break this offseason, but we're back now. And before we get into the post-game recaps of the preseason games, which I likely will do this season, I didn't really do that last year. I'm going to try to do it this year. But since preseason starts in just a couple days, I'm going to go ahead and give my overall thoughts and recapping of what happened last offseason. So enough wasting time. Let's go ahead and get into it. So first things first, and possibly the most important thing that happened this offseason that really should have happened. Like, this happened a year too late, unfortunately, but former Saints offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael is finally gone. Finally gone. No longer will we get in the red zone and only run plays outside the numbers. You will finally, possibly, maybe utilize Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara to their strengths by hiring former 49ers, I believe, pass game specialist, or I don't believe he was the offensive coordinator before, but now he's the offensive coordinator for the Saints, and this should be a great addition, actually giving us some creative play calling. He was really known for using lots of motion in his plays. We know how the 49ers offense was. It's very dynamic. They use a lot of motion with Deebo Samuel, for example, out of the backfield. Lots of creative stuff. So this should bring a spark to the Saints offense, and hopefully actually using Derek Carr to his strengths, because he's already an average quarterback as it is. So you want to be able to make the most out of that, right? So Clint Kubiak should be a great addition to the Saints. Now let's go ahead and get into what happened during this free agency period. Now, free agency with the Saints for the past few years has been a little difficult for us to actually get big-name players. And we all know what Mickey Loomis has been doing. He's for some reason, he's stuck and focused on the 2017 core and wants to kind of keep them around as long as possible, right? So he's been restructuring the contracts and kind of makes it to where we can't move them. And we're always in a cap space situation, right? So once again, this was not a lot of big name signings this offseason, but there's three really main free agency signings that we had. First of them being former Washington and 49ers defensive end Chase Young, who was a former number 2 overall pick. And this is important, okay, because this was really I like the signing in the sense that, he was a free agent already and he hasn't really had his full potential yet. There weren't really many teams willing to give him a chance. Now, keep in mind, Chase Young I believe he had a neck issue or some kind of injury that may have been the reason why no one really signed him until we did. But according to Dennis Allen and the Saints coaching staff, he should be ready to go for the season. But we all know how Saints are with their fucking injuries. So I'm not going to promise you guys that. But I do believe he was a full participant in practice this week or last week or whatever. So he should be good to go for the season, fingers crossed, and that should be good for the defensive line because we know last year our defensive line was not good. Cameron Jordan is aging, and he had a lingering ankle issue last year. And Chase Young should, if he stays healthy, he should bring a pretty good spark to play alongside Carl Granderson, who had his breakout year last year. And we also locked him up for a contract extension last year. So the two pair of that should be pretty good, and potentially it's possible that we may be moving Cam Jordan to the inside, which I would really like because he has kind of fallen off a bit as a pass rusher, but I do think he still has it as a run stopper. So if you put him in the inside, you want to just completely utilize his run stopping ability and every once in a while, put him in the defensive end again. I think that'd be a great idea for the Saints. I think that's something you may potentially see this season. So that's a good signing. Another key signing that we had was former Chiefs linebacker Willie Gay Jr., who should be a pretty good depth piece. He'll probably split snaps at that linebacker spot with Pete Werner, who I believe this is the contract year for him, and he's been all right, but we haven't really seen him be as good as he was in that early season in 2022 when he really broke out and looked like he could potentially be a star. He had that injury, and then we never really saw him get back to that. He's still a solid linebacker, but Willie Gay will bring another rotational piece to that linebacker position to play alongside Demario Davis, so I like that as well for the Saints. And another addition, pretty much our last key addition was former Dolphins wide receiver Cedric Wilson, who also played for the Cowboys and was pretty nice for the Cowboys one of the seasons he was there. But he's kind of like a 200, 300-yard receiver now. But this is just to get some wide receiver depth. We're going to talk about why we needed some wide receiver depth in a little bit, but you guys already know. But this was a solid piece. He's probably going to be the 3 or the 4, depending on A.T. Perry's development, because I have heard that A.T. Perry has not been having a great camp, which is kind of surprising because we really saw A.T. Perry break out towards the end of last season, especially that Falcons game at the end of the year. I believe he had 2 touchdowns and maybe like 60 or 70 receiving yards. And really the second half of that season, once Michael Thomas went down, he really showed some promise. So if A.T. Perry can get to what he should be, don't want to look too much into camp. But if he falls too far behind, Cedric Wilson could end up being the wide receiver 3. Obviously, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are going to be the 1 and the 2. But Cedric Wilson's a nice depth piece, just as a 3 or a 4. I like the move. No complaints there. Now we're going to get into the key losses the Saints had this offseason, because there are a few, no really huge ones per se, but there are a handful of losses. So first off, we lost our backup quarterback, Jameis Winston, to the Cleveland Browns. And y'all know how I feel about Jameis Winston. I really feel like he was screwed over by the Saints in that 2022 season. He was never really given a fair shot after that ACL injury. But it is what it is. I hope Jameis Winston gets a chance to start for the Cleveland Browns. Other losses include safety Marcus May, who I don't believe has even signed with anyone yet, but we didn't re-sign him. So he either signed with somebody that I'm just not sure. If he did sign with somebody, I'll put it on the screen, but I don't believe he did. As well as losing cornerback Isaac Yiadom, who was a really solid depth piece for us last year when we lost Marshawn Lattimore. He went to the 49ers, and we also lost linebacker / edge rusher Zach Bond, which it stinks because we never really used Zach Bond the way that he should have been, which was an edge rusher, and we didn't really use him like that till the very end of last season. Just absolutely fantastic adjustments by our coaching staff, not fucking knowing what he should be playing until the end of the season. But, it is what it is. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles, so hopefully he succeeds there. The last key loss that we had was Michael Thomas. And I know it's probably not necessarily a huge loss now because we have not seen him at his full potential since 2020 or really since 2019. But, injury after injury after injury. He got a prove it 1-year contract last year, and he got injured in week 10, barely made it through half the season. So it sucks. But the thing is, he has not signed with anyone just yet. I do believe it's definitely very possible that if we have a couple injuries, a wide receiver, something like that, I see no reason why to not bring Michael Thomas back, especially if A.T. Perry is struggling in camp, like the reports have shown. Why not bring back Michael Thomas? He's not going to be the 1, he's not going to be the 2, but he'd be a nice, third down, red zone receiver to have if we need later on in the season. So we'll see what happens with Michael Thomas. Obviously, a Saints legend. I believe he's probably the best wide receiver to ever play for the Saints. I know Marcus Colston, the run he had, but we've never seen a prime like Michael Thomas, winning Offensive Player of the Year, breaking the record, stuff like that. But obviously that don't matter now. And that pretty much does it for what happened during the free agency period. Now we're going to go ahead and get into this draft because this was a very important draft for the Saints after missing the playoffs 3 consecutive years. They started off with picking tackle Talisi Fuaga. I might have butchered his first name. If I did get that wrong, correct me in the comments. But this was an important pick for us because obviously we drafted Trevor Penning a couple years ago. The same draft we had Chris Olave in. Let's just say Trevor Penning is ass. He is absolute ass, or has been so far. Because when he started at the beginning of last year, he would have games where he was the only reason we weren't scoring 30 points. Like that Titans game in week 1 was one of the worst performances I've ever seen for an offensive tackle. Now, the Saints have done him no favors in terms of his development, just completely benching him after 5 weeks of the season. I understand it because of how ass he was, but this is going to be pretty much Trevor Penning's make or break it year. And the tackle situation is a little complicated, right? Because Ryan Ramczyk he's already out for the season, unfortunately, and he may not ever play football again. He's had a lingering knee issue that he's had a few surgeries on, I think, and he's never gotten it right. So I'm under the assumption he will never play again, and Talisi Fuaga will probably be the long-term starter at tackle. Now, this leaves it up in the air for who's going to be the answer at the other tackle position. I think what the Saints are trying in camp so far is they're going to put Fuaga at left tackle, and they're going to try Trevor Penning at right tackle. That's not going to go very well, in my opinion, and they actually flip-flopped what each played in college. I'm pretty sure Trevor Penning was a left tackle and Fuaga was a right tackle, But regardless, it's not a great place to be for the offensive line. Fuaga has great potential, but keep in mind, he is a rookie, so we only know so much for what he's going to be, or at least to start the season, and Trevor Penning has sucked. So maybe we'll see Landon Young take his place, who hasn't played much in his time with the Saints. He's been a backup, but he may have to fucking step up, or we may have to sign somebody in the middle of the season just to give us something. Now, in the second round, we drafted cornerback KoolAid McCoy out of Alabama, and I love this pick. Obviously, our corner depth is really good, but you got to keep in mind there are some interesting things happening. Paulson Adebo is going into a contract year, so if we can't afford him, McKinstry would be a great piece to have. And Marshawn Lattimore is aging and has injury issues. He's only played half the season the last 2 years. So, there's two uncertain spots at that corner position. So I'd say picking up KoolAid in the second round is great. And because he was a projected first rounder. So getting him in the second round, I believe I picked 40-something. I'm not sure. It's up on the screen right now. But for his value, I think it's a great addition to the Saints. I'm not sure if he's going to start. I think they still want to play Alontae Taylor at the slot, which I don't really agree with. But apparently he's had a good camp, so we'll see how that goes. I'm assuming it's going to be Lattimore to Debo on the outside and then Alontae Taylor in the slot. But I think KoolAid is supposed to be a slot corner, but maybe he'll play both. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens there. Now, this is the interesting one. The Saints, we didn't have a pick in the third or fourth round, but in the fifth round, we drafted quarterback Spencer Rattler, which is a very interesting pick. Now, there's a lot of mixed opinions about Spencer Rattler. I don't mind the pick because we all know Spencer Rattler early in his collegiate career was projected to be a much higher pick than in the fifth round. Now, we all know Caleb Williams took his spot and what happened from there. But I don't mind it. In the fifth round, go ahead and grab him, see what you get. We needed a quarterback since we lost Jameis Winston. So now the quarterback room is Derek Carr is going to be the starter this year, unfortunately. But, Derek Carr's going to be the starter. Then we have Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. I'm not sure who the 2 or 3 is going to be. I think probably Jake Haener will have the 2 spot just because he has more experience. He has 1 more year under his belt. But they'll battle it out in the preseason. That will be an interesting thing to watch in the preseason for sure, is the play of Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. I am looking forward to that, but I don't mind the pick. Maybe, if he does develop well enough, he could potentially be our starter in a couple years. Now, that could be pushing it. I'm not necessarily banking on that, but definitely something to watch. I do believe he has a lot of untapped potential that, we're just going to see how it happens. And that pretty much does it for the offseason recap. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my overall thoughts on the roster, kind of going off what we saw last season, and then also keeping in mind the new additions that we made. So obviously the head coach and quarterback combo is unfortunately the same, Dennis Allen and Derek Carr. That's where it all starts and ends, and it's hard to have huge expectations for this team when Derek Carr and Dennis Allen are your head coaches. I do believe Dennis Allen got better as a coach last season, but I just don't think he's a head coach. I just don't he's not a motivator. I think he's a great defensive mind. I just don't think he's a good head coach. Derek Carr is mid. He's mid. Now, if you have great coaching, Derek Carr could be slightly above average. We'll see how, the addition of Clint Kubiak, how well that offense and Derek Carr can gel. We'll see how long that takes. But, see, the problem is our offensive line, I'm just going to go ahead and give it straight to you guys. Our offensive line is going to suck this year. It's going to suck. We have very uncertain, there's a lot of uncertainty around our tackle position. I don't even know who's going to be starting a left guard. I think we have a few pieces they're probably going to battle out in camp. Our only sure spots really is Eric McCoy, who is definitely good, and Cesar Ruiz, who had a bit of a down year last year, but in 2022 he had a great season. I'm pretty sure we did extend his contract, so he should be one of our at least a top 2 offensive linemen for us this year if he can stay healthy. But our O-line's going to suck. And I do believe Clint Kubiak can get Alvin Kamara right, meaning actually using him correctly. With Pete Carmichael, since Drew Brees left, they've been using Alvin Kamara like he's fucking Derrick Henry, just running him up the middle 15 to 20 times a game. No creativity in the pass game, just flat routes, no wheel routes, no choice routes, none of the shit that he was really good at early in his career with Drew Brees. They just use him like a regular power back. So I think Clint Kubiak can get back to that. I just don't. I'm uncertain about our run game this year because our offensive line sucks, like I said, and Kendra Miller could be good for us, but he's had a lot of injury problems, and Dennis Allen even called him out on that because he said he got hurt like first day of camp, and Dennis Allen called him out for not being able to stay healthy, which I like and I don't like because why the hell were you not calling out players before? But I do like it. I wish you would call out players all the time, not like in a mean way, but like just holding them accountable and hold them to a higher standard. I don't mind it, but like don't only do it for the lower tier players on the team. Do it for everybody. Like when Derek Carr is ass, call him out. Because there were a lot of times last year where Derek Carr was stinking it up, and Dennis Allen would just be like, "Yep, that's our quarterback. We're not going to do anything." Like I said before when talking about the defense, I like our defense. Our defense should still be a top 10 defense. Our D-line has a lot more potential if Chase Young can stay healthy and Cam Jordan plays on the inside and can continue to be a good run stopper. He did have a lingering ankle issue, which I do believe held him back a little bit last year, but we all know Cam Jordan isn't who he was before. And Brian Brzee going into his second year, which is important. I do believe he's a stud at the tackle, so we'll see how he progresses. I like our linebacking core with DeMario Davis and Willie Gay / Pete Werner. And obviously our secondary should be lights out. We lost Marcus May, I believe, not Lonnie Johnson. Jordan Howden, the second-year player, should be sliding into that free safety position. And Tyrann Mathieu is still a solid piece, the Honey Badgers. So I think our secondary is definitely probably the best part of our team heading into this season. And I would be excited about it. I do expect to see a lot of turnovers again this year. Our defense should be keeping us in a lot of games. But the problem overall is our schedule is tough. And I'll be doing a schedule prediction probably after the preseason and before the regular season starts. But the schedule's tough. Our first 5 games, we have the Panthers week 1, but then we have the Cowboys, Eagles, the new look Falcons, and the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Like, that is fucking brutal. If we don't have our shit together, we could be looking at 1-4. We'd be lucky maybe even go 2-3. So it's going to be a tough beginning of the season. And the schedule, it does loosen up a bit at the end, but you're going to have to, like, Clint Kubiak is going to have this offense right from the beginning. And they're going to find a way to run the ball. Trevor Penning cannot be selling games at tackle. There's going to have to be an early connection. If it starts off slow like it did last season, I don't see us getting out of that stretch better than 2-3. But that's going to do it for this State of the Saints video heading into 2024. Thank you guys for watching. The next video I do will probably be the post game to the first Saints preseason game on Saturday against the Arizona Cardinals. So hopefully we get a good look at Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener and our young players, especially our O-line. Keeping an eye on that heading into the season. But I'm going to try to get back in the groove of things. I'm going to try to make a video after every game this season. I missed a couple last year, but I'm going to try to get back to it. I'm going to be really busy this year. It's going to be a lot tougher for me to make videos because I'm in college now, and I was in college last year too, but it's going to be getting tougher now because I got to focus a little bit more on school. That's why I won't be making videos throughout the week. It'll probably be a once a week kind of thing, but I'm going to do my best for you guys. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys hopefully on Saturday.